My firefighter brother-in-law confessed his 3-year obsession with my wife over speakerphone while I sat 5 feet away. Then we found 53 secret photos of her in bikinis hidden on his Macbook. This is the same guy who carries children out of burning buildings, the hero everyone admires. The man I trusted with my house keys and unlimited access to my family. My wife Sarah thought he was just the protective older brother type. I thought he was helping us move furniture and fix broken faucets out of family loyalty. We were wrong about everything. The call came on a Tuesday night while Sarah was folding laundry in our kitchen. She put him on speaker because she assumed he wanted to talk about babysitting his kids that weekend, normal in-law stuff. Instead, I listened to a grown man's voice shake as he talked about watching my wife, dreaming about her, calling it a one-sided obsession he'd been fighting for 3 years. The way he talked about signs she'd sent him was so delusional it made my skin crawl. But the call was nothing compared to what we found later. A hidden folder on his MacBook. Dozens of images he'd been secretly snapping Sarah in our backyard, getting into our car at every family vacation where she wore a swimsuit. 53 photos she never knew existed, trophies from a fantasy he thought he could control. As my phone buzzed with the text from my sister, "Something's wrong with Mike. He's acting crazy and I'm scared." I realized he wasn't just crossing boundaries. He was digging his own grave in real time. Then over our kitchen table, we heard him say the sentence that changed everything. "I've been in love with you for 3 years. Looking back now, the signs were everywhere. We just didn't want to see them. Sarah and I had been married 5 years when this all happened. My sister Lisa had been married to Mike for 8 years, and they had 2 kids together, 7 and 9 years old. He was the kind of guy who looked good on paper, steady job with the fire department, reliable income, respected in the community. Everyone called him a hero, and honestly, that's how we saw him too. Mike had always been part of our family routine. Sunday dinners, birthday parties, vacation trips to the lake every summer. He was the guy who showed up when you needed furniture moved, who fixed your broken garbage disposal without being asked, who volunteered to watch the kids when you needed a date night. We thought he was just being a good brother-in-law. Thinking back, his helpfulness had a very specific pattern. When Sarah needed her car inspected, Mike volunteered to take it to his buddy's shop. When our kitchen faucet started leaking, Mike insisted on fixing it himself instead of letting us call a plumber. When we planned family trips, Mike always had suggestions about where Sarah should sit in the car, which activities she'd enjoy most, what she should wear for hiking or swimming. At every family gathering, every barbecue, every holiday, Mike always seemed to position himself where he could watch my wife. He'd offer to help her in the kitchen while the rest of us watched football. He'd suggest group photos where he stood next to her. He'd remember details about conversations she'd had weeks earlier, details that even I sometimes forgot. He always found reasons to be around my wife. The compliments started small and seemed harmless. "Sarah looks great in that color. You're lucky to have such a beautiful wife. Sarah's got the best laugh in the family." We brushed them off as typical in-law comments, the kind of thing guys say to be polite. Then the comments got more specific. He'd notice when Sarah got her hair cut before I did. He'd mention her perfume, her new workout routine, even the way she folded towels. He started texting her directly about family events instead of going through me or my sister. When we went swimming at the lake, he'd make comments about how stunning she looked in her swimsuit, how she was aging like fine wine, and somehow always ended up where he could watch her from the best angle. Sarah mentioned feeling uncomfortable sometimes, like someone was watching her during family gatherings. She'd catch Mike staring, and he'd quickly look away. But when she brought it up, we rationalized it. He was probably just spaced out. He was going through a rough patch at work. He was stressed about money. I didn't realize we were watching a one-sided obsession develop in slow motion. We should have listened to our instincts. The call that changed everything came at 8:47 on a Tuesday evening. Sarah was folding a load of towels at our kitchen table when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, saw Mike's name, and put it on speaker without thinking twice. This was normal. He called about family stuff all the time. Babysitting schedules, weekend plans, who was bringing what to Sunday dinner. I was sitting 5 feet away, half distracted by my laptop. "Hey Mike, what's up?" Sarah said, still folding. There was a long pause, then his voice came through shaky and strange. "Sarah, please don't hang up. I need you to know something I've been holding back for way too long." I looked up. Sarah froze with a towel in her hands. The tone in his voice was completely wrong, nervous, desperate, nothing like the confident firefighter we knew. "What are you talking about?" Sarah asked carefully. "I know this is crazy. I know you're married to Jake, and I know this could destroy everything, but I can't keep pretending anymore." His voice cracked. I've been watching you, thinking about you, dreaming about you. I can't sleep at night because all I do is think about you. The silence felt endless. Sarah's face went white. Every protective instinct I had flared, but something told me to stay quiet and let this play out. I needed to hear exactly how deep this one-sided obsession went. Mike took her silence as permission. He started talking about signs he thought he'd seen, moments he'd twisted into encouragement. The way she'd smiled at him at last year's barbecue, how she'd asked him to help reach something from a high shelf, the time she'd complimented his shirt. I've been documenting everything he said, sounding almost excited now, delusional. Every conversation, every look, every time you laughed at something I said. I've been keeping track for 3 years, and I know you feel something too. 3 years. He'd been obsessing over my wife for 3 years, collecting evidence of a relationship that existed only in his head. Mike, I don't, Sarah started. I know you can't say it out loud with Jake there, Mike interrupted, but I know you feel the same way about me. I've been in love with you for 3 years. I'd heard enough. I stood up from the table and took the phone from Sarah's hands. Mike, this is Jake. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice flipped, instantly caught, panicked, scrambling. Jake, man, you don't understand. This isn't what it sounds like. It sounds like you just told my wife you've been obsessing over her for 3 years, I said, keeping my voice level but letting the steel come through. It sounds like you've been documenting her conversations and convincing yourself she wants you back. Sarah was shaking beside me. When I put my hand on her shoulder, it felt like touching a live wire. She looked like someone who'd just realized she'd been living next door to a one-sided obsession. I grabbed my keys. We'll be at your house in 20 minutes. We're settling this now. The drive to my sister's house was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone with growing horror. Jake, she whispered, I have 47 unread text messages from him. 47 messages. 8 months of him talking to himself, building a delusional fantasy while she never replied. By the time we pulled into Lisa's driveway, it was close to 9:30. Mike was already waiting on the front porch. The confident firefighter persona was gone. He looked like a man who'd been caught digging his own grave and only just realized how deep it was. Jake. Sarah, thank God you're here, he started. Before we were even out of the car. Look, I think you misunderstood what I was trying to say on the phone. I misunderstood. I stepped closer. You told my wife you've been documenting her behavior for 3 years because you think she's in love with you. That's not okay. Maybe I didn't explain it right. He was talking fast now, desperate. Sarah, you know how close we are. You know there's always been something special between us. Sarah finally found her voice. Mike, there's nothing between us. There never has been. Come on, he said, and I could hear the manipulation tightening. You've been flirting with me for months. The way you smile at me, the way you ask me to help with things around your house. You wear those outfits when you know I'm coming over. You don't understand, she led me on. I felt my hands clench into fists, but Lisa appeared in the doorway before I could move. What's going on out here, she asked. Mike's been acting weird all evening, and now you guys are here looking like someone died. I looked at my sister, Mike's wife, mother of his kids, the person who thought she'd married a hero. Lisa, you need to hear this. Your husband just confessed to stalking Sarah for 3 years. Mike's face went red. That's not what this is. Sarah's been encouraging me, giving me signals. What signals? Sarah snapped, anger finally catching up with fear. Asking you to help move furniture, being polite at family dinners. That's not flirting, Mike. That's being a decent human being. You know it's more than that. His voice got sharper, more unhinged. The way you look at me when Jake's not watching. The way you laugh at my jokes. You've been leading me on for months. The gaslighting was textbook. Take normal human kindness, twist it into romantic intent, then blame the victim for encouraging something she never wanted. That's when Sarah held up her phone. Mike, I have 8 months of text messages from you that I never responded to, she said. Her voice steady now. 8 months of you telling me how beautiful I am, how much you think about me, how you wish things were different. Do you know what that looks like on my screen? 47 messages in a row from you and nothing from me. The messages went back 8 months. Sarah started reading the messages out loud, and each one was worse than the last. March 15th, 2 in the morning. Can't sleep thinking about you. You looked incredible at dinner tonight, she scrolled. March 20th. I keep replaying that moment when you touched my arm while laughing. It felt like electricity. I watched Mike's face cycle through panic, shame, and desperate calculation as his own words came back to haunt him. Lisa stood in the doorway with her mouth open, realizing her husband had been writing romantic poetry to another woman for 8 months. April 3rd. Sarah continued, her voice getting steadier. I I wrote you a poem about your eyes. I know you can't respond, but I hope you feel what I feel when you read it. Then there's a full sonnet, Mike. A sonnet about my eyes. The messages weren't just frequent, they were obsessive. 2 a.m. confessions, long rambling texts about destiny and soulmates, detailed paragraphs about what he wanted to do with her, how he'd been protecting her from a distance, how he knew they were meant to be together. Lisa stepped fully onto the porch. Mike, what is she talking about? You've been writing poems to my brother-in-law's wife. He'd been messaging her every single day, but the texts were nothing compared to the voicemails. Sarah opened her voicemail app and I saw 15 unplayed messages, some of them over 10 minutes long. She hit play on the most recent one and held the phone out so everyone could hear. Mike's voice came through the speaker, but it wasn't the confident firefighter we knew. This was a broken, delusional man talking to himself. Sarah. I know you're probably asleep, but I had to call. I saw you at the grocery store today and you looked so beautiful in that blue dress. The way the sunlight hit your hair. I stood in the parking lot for 20 minutes just watching you load groceries into your car. He'd been watching her at the grocery store, following her routine, timing his errands to match hers. A one-sided obsession narrated in his own voice. The voicemail kept going. I know we can't be together right now, but someday you'll realize what we have is real. I have special photos of you from our beach trip last year. When I look at them, I can almost convince myself you were posing just for me. Special photos. My blood went cold. Sarah stopped the voicemail. Lisa, he mentioned photos. Before anyone could respond, Mike's voice cracked and he said the words that showed just how deep this went. She's my soulmate, Lisa. I know it sounds crazy, but I can feel it. She's been sending me signs for 3 years. 3 years of building a fantasy. 3 years of misreading every polite interaction as romantic interest. 3 years of secretly snapping photos and writing love letters to a woman who never wrote back. Lisa looked at her husband like she was seeing a stranger. Mike, what photos is she talking about? That's when I knew we'd only scratched the surface. The photos are on his laptop, Lisa said quietly. He's been acting weird about it lately, password protecting everything, keeping it in his truck instead of leaving it around the house. Mike's face went white. Lisa, don't what, Mike? Don't let them see the photos you took of my brother-in-law's wife. Lisa's voice was getting harder. Get your laptop, right now. I can explain the photos, Mike said, but his voice was shaking. They're just family pictures, group shots from our vacations. Then you won't mind showing us, I said. Mike disappeared into the house and came back with his laptop, moving like a man walking to his execution. His hands trembled as he opened it. Lisa stood behind him as he reluctantly clicked through folders, then stopped at one labeled Beach Trip 2023. Inside were 53 photos of my wife. Not group shots, not family pictures. 53 individual photos of Sarah in her bikini taken without her knowledge during our family vacation last summer. Photos of her getting out of the water, reading on the beach, putting on sunscreen. Close-up shots of her face, her body, her hands. Every frame was composed like she was the only person who existed. I felt sick looking at them. These weren't candid family moments, they were trophies. He'd spent an entire week secretly photographing my wife while pretending to be the helpful brother-in-law, carrying beach chairs and fixing umbrellas. And the beach trip folder was just the beginning. There were 6 other folders, each labeled with different events: Sarah's birthday 2022, lake house weekend, Christmas morning, backyard BBQ, Sarah gardening, grocery store. He'd followed her there with a camera. The photos went back 2 years. 2 years of systematic stalking disguised as family gatherings and quick helpful visits. Photos through our kitchen window. Photos of Sarah in our backyard. Shots of her getting into her car in our driveway. Long-distance images taken with a telephoto lens from across the street. Lisa scrolled with growing horror. Mike, these file names. Sarah yoga pants, Tuesday. Sarah red dress, date night. Sarah kitchen window mornings. He'd been secretly snapping photos for 2 years. Each file name was a timestamp and description organized like a catalog. He'd been documenting my wife's life, building a digital archive of her most private moments. There were photos of her in our bedroom through the window, exercising in our living room shot from outside, gardening, showering through frosted glass, sleeping on our couch. This wasn't admiration, this wasn't even just obsession. This was predatory one-sided fixation dressed up in his head as love. There's more, Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. Look at this email folder. She'd found a hidden email account he'd created specifically to contact Sarah. The address was Sarah's destiny2023@gmail.com, and it contained dozens of unsent emails. Draft after draft of love letters, detailed fantasies, plans for how he would make her understand his feelings. The emails were even worse than the texts, pages of delusional romantic writing, explicit descriptions of what he wanted to do to her, and detailed plans for how he would reveal everything. One email dated just 3 days ago was titled "The Truth About Us" and contained a step-by-step plan for confessing his love. He'd been planning that phone call for weeks. He'd been digging his own grave one draft at a time. Lisa slammed the laptop shut. "Mike, pack your bags. Tonight, I want you out of this house." "Lisa, please let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been stalking my brother-in-law's wife for 2 years, that you've been taking pictures of her through her bedroom window, that you created a secret email account to write her love letters." Sarah was shaking beside me. "Lisa, I never knew. I never encouraged this. I know, honey," Lisa said, putting her arm around Sarah without looking away from Mike. "This isn't your fault. This is his sickness." Mike made one last desperate attempt at manipulation. "You're all overreacting. I'm not some creep. I'm a firefighter. I save people. I would never hurt Sarah. I love her." That's when Lisa said the words that ended his delusion for good. "Love doesn't involve stalking someone with a camera, Mike," she said. "That's not love, that's obsession." The next morning, we sat in our kitchen with everything spread out like evidence for a trial. Screenshots of every text message time-stamped and saved. Audio files of the voicemails copied into permanent folders. Photos of his laptop screen showing the way he organized Sarah's images. A detailed timeline mapping his escalating behavior over 2 years. We'd documented everything methodically the way you'd prepare for court. Because that's exactly what we were doing. "I talked to a detective friend of mine this morning," I told Sarah over coffee. "What Mike's been doing has a name: stalking, harassment, invasion of privacy. The photos through our bedroom window alone could get him charged with voyeurism." Sarah stared at the pile. "I keep thinking about all the times he was in our house. All the times I thought he was just being helpful and he was actually studying me. The one good thing I said is that he documented everything himself. The timestamps on the photos, the saved drafts of his emails, the way he cataloged you by outfit and location, he built the whole case against himself. This is textbook one-sided obsession." We had enough evidence for criminal charges. But criminal charges meant more than just Mike finally facing consequences. It meant Lisa's kids would eventually learn their father was a stalker. It meant extended family would have to reconcile their hero firefighter with the man who'd been secretly snapping photos of his sister-in-law. It meant Mike's colleagues at the fire department would discover what kind of person they'd been trusting with their families' lives. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about safety and about what we were willing to live with. I called Lisa that afternoon to check on her. She sounded exhausted. "The kids keep asking why Daddy had to leave so suddenly," she said. "I told them he's staying somewhere else for a while, but they're confused. And I don't know how to explain this without destroying their image of their father." "What are you thinking about custody?" I asked. "That's what scares me the most," Lisa admitted. "If this becomes public, if there are criminal charges, Mike's lawyer could argue that I knew about his behavior and didn't protect the kids. They could say I should have seen the signs, should have stopped him sooner." The custody implications were terrifying. Mike could flip the narrative, claim Lisa was an unfit mother for not recognizing his behavior, sooner argue that the kids belonged with him because she had failed to provide a safe environment. Family court judges had made stranger decisions based on less. This had the power to destroy more than just his marriage. "There's something else," Lisa continued. "Mike called my parents this morning. He told them you and Sarah are trying to break up our marriage because you're jealous of our relationship. He's already started spinning this as your fault." That's when I realized we needed to control the narrative before Mike did. If he got to the extended family first, if he convinced them Sarah had encouraged him, we'd be fighting an uphill battle against his delusion. "We need to do this right," I told Sarah that evening. "Full disclosure, to family, clear evidence, no room for him to twist the story." "What if he tries to claim I led him on?" Sarah asked. "What if people believe him?" "He made one critical mistake," I said, looking at the folder full of proof. "He kept records of everything. The texts he sent that you never answered, the voicemails you never returned, the photos he took that you never knew about. He documented his own one-sided obsession. All we're doing is holding it up to the light. In the end, we decided Mike would get one chance to handle this quietly, pack his things, leave Lisa and the kids alone, and disappear from our lives voluntarily. If he refused, we'd involve the police file stalking charges and let the courts decide his fate. He could face the truth on our terms or face the law on theirs. 3 days later, we drove back to Lisa's house for the final confrontation. It was almost 11 p.m. when we pulled into the driveway. Mike's truck was still there. He'd been staying in a motel but coming back during the day to try to convince Lisa to let him come home. We'd timed this deliberately, late enough that the neighbors wouldn't be watching, but early enough that we could handle this before it turned into another sleepless night for Lisa and the kids. I carried a manila folder containing everything we'd documented. Sarah had her phone ready with the voicemail app open. Lisa met us at the front door looking like she'd aged 5 years in 3 days. He's been calling every hour, she said, quietly. Begging, threatening, promising to change. He says you're both lying about the photos, that we misunderstood what we saw. Mike appeared behind her in the doorway, and I could immediately see he was trying to regain control of the narrative. He'd shaved, dressed in his fire department polo shirt, trying to project authority and trustworthiness. He stepped into the doorframe like a barrier. Jake, Sarah, this is between me and my wife, he said. You need to leave. Actually, Mike, this involves all of us, I said, holding up the folder. Since you've been claiming we misunderstood what we saw, we brought everything to make it crystal clear. I opened the folder and pulled out the first page screenshots of his text messages with timestamps. March 15th, 2 a.m. Can't sleep thinking about you. You looked incredible at dinner tonight. March 20th. It felt like electricity when you touched my arm. April 3rd, an entire sonnet about Sarah's eyes. Mike's face immediately shifted to damage control mode. Those messages are being taken out of context. Sarah stepped forward. Mike, what context makes it appropriate to write poetry about another man's wife's eyes? You know what context, Mike said, desperation already bleeding through. We have a connection, Sarah. You've been flirting with me for months, encouraging me. Show me one response, Sarah said, holding up her phone. One message where I encouraged you. One text where I flirted back. One voicemail where I said anything that could be interpreted as romantic interest. He didn't move. He couldn't because there weren't any. I laid down the next set of pages, printed screenshots of his laptop folders. Beach trip 2023, I said. 53 photos of Sarah in her bikini that she didn't know you were taking. I flipped to the next page. Sarah kitchen window, morning. Sarah yoga pants, Tuesday. Sarah red dress, date night. Those are just family photos, Mike started. Family photos through our bedroom window. I cut in. Family photos taken with a telephoto lens from across the street. You organized them by outfit and location, Mike. You cataloged my wife. Lisa stepped forward, her voice no longer shaking. Mike, stop lying. We all saw the folders. We all saw the email account you created specifically to write her love letters. Sarah's Destiny 2023. Seriously, I never sent those emails, he tried. Because she never gave you her email address, Lisa snapped. Because she never wanted to hear from you. Because this whole thing is a one-sided obsession you built in your head while secretly snapping photos of her for 2 years. Sarah tapped her phone and hit play on one of the voicemails. Mike's own voice spilled out into the night, Sarah. I saw you at the grocery store today and you looked so beautiful in that blue dress. I stood in the parking lot for 20 minutes just watching you load groceries into your car. Lisa flinched. Sarah stopped the message. You followed me to the grocery store, Sarah said quietly. You stood there watching me like I was a show you'd paid for. Mike's voice got sharper, more unhinged. You don't understand. You've been sending me signals. The way you look at me, the way you dress when you know I'm coming over. Mike, Sarah said, her voice deadly calm. I dress the same way every day. I look at everyone the same way. I've been polite to you because you're family. That's not a signal, that's basic human decency. You're twisting everything, Mike insisted, but his voice was cracking. I'm not some creep. I'm a firefighter. I save people. I would never hurt anyone. I love her. He was still clinging to the uniform like it could erase the evidence. Every word out of his mouth just dug his grave a little deeper. That's when Lisa delivered the line that ended his delusion for good. Heroes don't stalk people with cameras. Mike, she said, heroes don't spend 2 years building secret photo collections of women who never asked for the attention. You're not a hero, you're a predator who hides behind a uniform. The word predator hung in the air like a verdict. Mike looked around the porch at his wife, who was done protecting him, at Sarah, who had never wanted his attention, at me holding a folder that could walk straight into a police station, and realized there was nowhere left to run. For 2 years, he'd been documenting his fantasy like proof. Tonight, his own receipts finally told the truth about what he really was. Mike left that night with a police escort. Lisa had called them while we were still on the porch. She told the dispatcher she needed help removing someone from her property who'd been stalking her brother-in-law's wife and that she had evidence of voyeurism and harassment. We'd given Mike his chance to leave quietly. He'd chosen denial instead. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. I watched Mike try to explain himself to the cops, the same confident tone he'd used with us, talking about misunderstandings and family drama. But when they asked to see the evidence, his voice got smaller and smaller. 53 unauthorized photos of a woman in various states of undress doesn't have a lot of innocent explanations. Neither do voicemails where you admit watching her in grocery store parking lots. The officers took copies of everything. They also took Mike's laptop as evidence and issued a temporary restraining order on the spot. Mike wasn't allowed within 500 feet of our house or Sarah's workplace. He wasn't allowed to contact her through any means, no calls, no texts, no emails, no accidental appearances at family events where she'd be present. He was gone by morning. The legal consequences came fast. Within 2 weeks, Mike was formally charged with stalking, harassment, and voyeurism. The fire department launched their own investigation. Turns out secretly photographing women isn't behavior they want associated with their uniform. He was suspended without pay, pending the outcome of the criminal case. Lisa filed for divorce and emergency custody. Mike's own documented obsession became Exhibit A, that he was an unstable influence on the children. The family court judge ordered supervised visitation only 2 hours on Sundays, with a court-appointed monitor present and no overnights. The same receipts he thought proved true love now proved he couldn't be trusted alone. His delusional obsession cost him everything. But the most important thing was how it brought Sarah and Lisa closer together. 2 sisters who'd always been family now bonded by having survived something that could have destroyed both their lives. Lisa chose protecting the victim over protecting the perpetrator, even when the perpetrator was her own husband. Sarah finally felt safe in her own home again. We changed the locks, installed security cameras, and Lisa made sure Mike understood that his entire extended family now knew exactly what kind of man he really was. Sometimes predators get away with their behavior because good people don't want to believe the evidence in front of them. But Mike made one critical mistake. He dug his own grave with every text he sent, every photo he took, every email he drafted. The truth was always there, carefully documented in his own obsessive handwriting.